The rotating ring of Station Arbiter gleamed in the harsh light of the binary star system it orbited. Through the hollow viewports, dozens of contested worlds shimmered like jewels against the darkness of space, their beauty belying the devastation of the war-torn system below. Inside the station, the artificial gardens thrived in carefully maintained atmospheric conditions, providing a stark contrast to the ultra-quiet corridors that connected the various diplomatic chambers. Captain Mara Alex walked with measured steps through one such corridor, her regulation boots making barely a sound on the polished floor. The year was 2374 CE, 3 decades after the first contact wars had reshaped humanity's place in the galaxy. As the human attaché to the Galactic Peace Council, Mara carried the weight of Earth's diplomatic interests on her shoulders. Her calm demeanor and ability to remain collected under pressure had earned her this coveted position. But today she felt an uncharacteristic flutter of anxiety in her stomach. Beside her padded Orion, a genetically enhanced wolfhound with glossy black fur and intelligent amber eyes. Unlike the standard service animals of earlier centuries, Orion was a sophisticated bioengineered companion with diplomatic security clearance. His enhanced senses could detect subtle changes in atmospheric composition and body language cues that even the most advanced technology sometimes missed. The bone-shaped tag on his collar gleamed, marking him as more than a pet. He was an official Earth envoy. "Status report," Mara murmured, her voice barely audible. The station AI responded immediately in her earpiece. "Arby here. The council chamber is at 97% occupancy. Commander Kiris Tal's delegation arrived 12 minutes ago. They are displeased about something." Mara suppressed a sigh. Commander Tal, an insectoid warlord who had reluctantly transitioned to the role of peace negotiator, was notoriously rigid and xenophobic. His distrust of Earth's bioassets was well documented, and he had filed multiple formal complaints about the presence of combat organisms in diplomatic settings. "Specify displeased," Mara prompted. Commander Tal has been clicking his mandibles at 23% higher frequency than his baseline. Translation buffers indicate agitation. Mara nodded. The Council's regulations strictly forbade unregistered combat organisms in plenary sessions, but Earth had successfully lobbied for the inclusion of biological envoys as a gesture of cultural goodwill. It had taken years of diplomatic wrangling to get Orion and others like him accepted into these high-security zones. "Ready, boy?" she asked, looking down at her companion. Orion's tail swished once in acknowledgement, his posture alert, but relaxed. Unlike the nervous diplomats waiting inside, he seemed perfectly at ease. The doors to the council chamber slid open silently, revealing a vast circular room. Delegates from 27 species occupied tiered seating around a central podium. Holographic displays hovered above each section, showing real-time translation of the proceedings. The air hummed with the subtle vibration of translation devices and environmental controls. Commander Kiris Tal was instantly recognizable. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed a deep metallic blue under the chamber lights, and his 3 compound eyes shifted through various shades of amber as he tracked Mara's entrance. His mandibles twitched visibly when he spotted Orion. Ambassador Huo Jin, a tall avian representative with iridescent feathers and a reputation for impartiality, nodded in greeting from the moderator's position. "Captain Alex, we welcome Earth's delegation. The opening statements are about to commence." Mara took her designated seat, Orion settling at her feet. She could feel Tal's gaze boring into her, but she kept her expression neutral as she activated her data pad. The formal proceedings began with the traditional acknowledgments of past conflicts and aspirations for peace. One by one, delegates rose to reaffirm their commitment to the fragile treaty that had been years in the making. When it was Tal's turn, he rose to his full height, towering over most of the other representatives. "The Scarlet Collective acknowledges the necessity of these negotiations," he began, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into the common language. "However, we must express concern over continued security breaches. Particularly," his compound eyes flashed a vivid orange as he gestured toward Mara and Orion, "the presence of unrestrained combat bioforms in diplomatic settings." A murmur rippled through the assembly. Mara maintained her composure, though she felt her jaw tighten. Earth's biological envoys have been approved by this council. Ambassador Huojin reminded him gently. Captain Elix's companion has the required clearances. Tal's mandibles clicked rapidly. "A formality that should be reconsidered. It's just a dog, a predator with artificial enhancements, brought into the heart of our most sensitive discussions." The dismissive words hung in the air. Mara opened her mouth to respond when a distant metallic clank echoed from somewhere in the corridor outside. It was barely audible to human ears, but Orion's head snapped up immediately. A low growl rumbled from his throat, a sound that seemed to vibrate through the floor. The effect on Tal was immediate and dramatic. His exoskeleton flashed from blue to a defensive red, and his mandibles cracked audibly. Several of his aides leapt to their feet, protective appendages extended. "Threat display!" Tal shouted, backing away. "The Earth Beast threatens!" The council erupted into chaos. Emergency protocols activated automatically, casting the chamber in a pulsing amber light. Translation buffers glitched under the sudden flood of multiple languages, creating a cacophony of partial phrases and warnings. Delegates from various factions rose from their seats, some demanding order, others calling for security. "Orion is responding to a sound in the corridor," Mara explained quickly, placing a calming hand on her companion's head. The growl ceased immediately. "He's trained to alert to unusual patterns. There is no threat to Commander Tal." But Tal was already backing toward the exit, his delegation following in tight formation. "This session is suspended," he declared. "The Scarlet Collective refuses further negotiation unless that creature is removed or placed under armed escort at all times." With that, he stormed out, leaving the chamber in disarray. Ambassador Huojin's feathers flattened in distress. "Captain Elix, perhaps you could explain what just happened?" Mara stood, her expression determined. "With respect, Ambassador, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. Commander Tal called Orion just a dog. I intend to prove he's much more than that, and an essential part of Earth's diplomatic corps." The challenge had been issued. Now she would have to make good on her words, or risk derailing the peace process entirely. As the emergency lights faded back to normal, Mara knelt beside Orion, whose posture had returned to perfect calm. "Well, boy," she murmured, "it seems we've got our work cut out for us." His amber eyes met hers with an intelligence that belied Tal's dismissive words. This was no ordinary dog, and soon the entire council would know it. The aftermath of the disrupted session rippled through Station Arbiter like shock waves. Mara found herself standing before a hastily convened security panel, explaining Orion's reaction for what felt like the 100th time. "Orion detected an anomalous sound pattern," she repeated, maintaining her professional demeanor despite her growing frustration. His alert was appropriate and controlled. At no time did he pose a threat to Commander Tal or any other delegate. The Arbiter's security chief, a stern Centaurian with silvery skin and pupilless eyes, consulted his data slate. "The commander's delegation has issued a formal ultimatum. No hounds or we walk." Given the importance of the Scarlet Collective's participation in these negotiations, the Council is taking this very seriously. The collective is using this incident as a pretext, Mara argued. Commander Tal has opposed Earth's bioenvoy program from its inception. This is a political maneuver, not a legitimate security concern. Nevertheless, interjected a council representative, we must conduct a formal security review. Until then, your companion must remain confined to your quarters. Mara bit back a sharper response. With respect, that's unacceptable. Orion is an accredited member of Earth's diplomatic corps. Confining him would be tantamount to detaining an official representative. Outside the chamber, the situation was escalating in other ways. Media drones had somehow gotten wind of the incident and now swarmed the station's atrium, broadcasting speculation and debate across multiple star systems. Public opinion was sharply divided over Earth's use of bioambassadors, with some praising the innovative approach to interspecies relations and others echoing Tal's concerns about security. Back in her quarters, Mara paced restlessly while Orion watched from his cushion. The privacy shields were activated, but she could still hear the muffled sounds of the station's increased security measures being implemented. "Arby, give me Commander Tal's current location," she requested. The AI's voice filled the room. "Commander Tal is in Corridor 7B, approaching the Xenobiology Laboratory." Mara made a quick decision. "Come on, Orion. Time to have a chat with our insectoid friend." She calculated the timing carefully, emerging from a cross-corridor just as Tal and his small entourage approached. The commander's carapace flickered with bands of surprised orange when he spotted her. "Captain Alex," he clicked, his translator rendering the sound into a clipped tone. "You should not be here, and certainly not with that creature." Mara stood her ground, Orion sitting calmly at her side. "Commander, we need to address what happened. Orion poses no threat to you or these negotiations." Tal's compound eyes flashed. "You brought a combat bioform into a peace council and call it no threat." His voice rose, causing several passers-by to slow their pace. Earth's practice of biological espionage is well documented. That animal has enhanced sensory capabilities far beyond what should be permitted in diplomatic settings. Enhanced senses, yes, Mara acknowledged. But he's trained for protection and hazard detection, not espionage. Earth has been transparent about his capabilities. Transparent? Tal's mandibles clacked in what the translator rendered as derisive laughter. Your species took wolves, apex predators, and modified them for war. Now you bring one into peace talks and expect us to believe it's… what? A mascot? Mara took a careful step forward. He's a partner. Earth's relationship with canines predates our spacefaring era by millennia. They've been our companions, protectors, and friends since before recorded history. Friends with predators, Tal said flatly. This explains much about humanity. The confrontation was drawing attention. Station security drones hovered nearby, their sensors undoubtedly recording every word. "Commander," Mara said, lowering her voice, "I understand your concerns, but by demanding Orion's removal, you're jeopardizing months of careful negotiation. Is that truly what you want?" For a moment, Tal seemed to consider her words. Then his exoskeleton flashed a dismissive blue. "What I want is security protocols that protect all delegates, not special exceptions for Earth's experiments. The talks will proceed when your beast is properly contained." With that, he continued down the corridor, his entourage forming a protective barrier between him and Orion. Mara watched them go, a knot of doubt forming in her stomach. Had bringing Orion been a mistake? The wolfhound had been invaluable in her previous assignments, but she'd never faced such direct opposition before. Her career had been built on successful negotiations and consensus building. Now, because of what Tal had called just a dog. Everything she had worked for was at risk. Orion nudged her hand gently with his nose, sensing her distress. The simple gesture of comfort reminded her why Earth had fought so hard for the Bioenvoy program. There were some things technology simply couldn't replace. "Let's go." "Boy," she said softly. "We've got work to do." The next day brought a carefully orchestrated demonstration. Under the watchful eyes of 3 xenopsychologists, Orion performed a series of behaviors designed to showcase his training and non-threatening nature. He responded to subtle commands, demonstrated relaxed posture in the presence of various species, and underwent a series of sniff tests to prove he wasn't aggressive toward non-human biochemistry. Dr. Cian Rolk, the lead xenopsychologist, nodded approvingly as he reviewed the data. "The subject shows remarkable restraint and intelligence," he noted, his tentacle-like digits dancing over a holographic display. "By the standards of any species, this is a well-trained companion." Mara felt a surge of hope. "Then you'll recommend the security restrictions be lifted?" Before Rolk could answer, an alert chimed from the communication array. Ambassador Huojin's holographic form materialized in the center of the room, her feathers slightly ruffled, a sign of distress. "Captain Elix," she began without preamble. "There's been a development. A data leak has revealed that your companion's embedded biosensors can detect vibration patterns through walls and sealed doors. Commander Tal is calling an emergency session, claiming this proves Earth has brought a spy dog into the negotiations." Mara's heart sank. "That information isn't classified. Ambassador, Orion's capabilities were included in his clearance documentation." "Perhaps," Huojin acknowledged, "but many delegates skimmed those technical details. Now that it's been highlighted in this manner, the Council is divided. Half want to side with Tal's security concerns, while others are intrigued by Earth's living technology." "What do you suggest?" Mara asked, stroking Orion's head absently. Huojin's holographic form shimmered as she considered. "A practical demonstration, perhaps, under controlled conditions, to show both the capabilities and the limitations of your companion. It might help sway those who are undecided." It was a gamble, but Mara saw few alternatives. "Arrange it, Ambassador. We'll be ready." After the transmission ended, Dr. Rolk approached her. "A demonstration is risky. Captain, if your companion performs too well, it could confirm Tal's fears. If he fails, it undermines your position." "I'm aware of the risks," Mara replied. "But Tal has already labeled Orion a spy and a threat. Hiding his abilities now would only strengthen those accusations." Ralk's expression was unreadable, but he inclined his head slightly. "A fair assessment. I will help prepare the test parameters." 2 hours later, a small but influential group of Council representatives gathered in a secure testing chamber. Commander Tal stood rigidly at the back, flanked by his aides, his carapace shifting between anxious yellows and wary blues. "The parameters are simple," Dr. Rolk explained to the assembly. "We have hidden a simulated explosive device somewhere in this chamber. It emits no radiation, heat, or detectable energy signature by conventional scanners. Captain Elix and her companion will attempt to locate it. The device should be inert, of course," Tal interjected, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "It is completely harmless," Rolk confirmed. "Merely a synthetic compound with a molecular structure similar to common explosives." Tal wasn't satisfied. "The beast should be chained for this demonstration." Mara shook her head firmly. "Orion works on subtle cues and needs freedom of movement. I guarantee he poses no danger to anyone present." Before Tal could object further, Ambassador Huojin stepped forward. "The demonstration may proceed as Dr. Rolk has outlined. Captain Elix has given her assurance, which we accept." The tension in the room was palpable as Mara led Orion to the center of the chamber. The wolfhound's posture was relaxed, but alert, his amber eyes scanning the surroundings. "Find it, Orion," Mara commanded softly. "Search." Orion began a methodical sweep of the room, his nose working diligently. The spectators watched in silence as he moved past furniture, along walls, and under fixtures. Barely 30 seconds into the search, he stopped abruptly beside an innocuous-looking decorative panel, sat down, and looked expectantly at Mara. "He's found something," she announced. Dr. Ralk approached cautiously and scanned the panel. "Remarkable. The device is indeed behind this panel, sealed in a containment field. How did he detect it?" "Molecular scent detection," Mara explained. "Even through sealed barriers, trace molecules can escape. Orion's olfactory enhancements allow him to detect them at concentrations far below standard sensor thresholds." She gave Orion a hand signal, and he touched the panel gently with his nose. In response to the bioelectric signal from his collar, the panel's edge illuminated green. "In a real situation," Mara continued, "that would mark the location for bomb disposal units. Orion is trained never to disturb potential explosives." There was a mixture of impressed murmurs and concerned whispers from the delegates. Tal's exoskeleton had shifted to a deep, troubled purple. "You see," he said, stepping forward. "This creature can detect what our most advanced technology cannot. It can identify secured areas, locate hidden safes, even find concealed listening devices. And you want us to allow it unrestricted access to our most sensitive negotiations?" Before Mara could respond, a commotion erupted in the corridor outside. The station's alarm system activated, bathing the room in pulsing red light. "Security breach in Sector 12, Arby's calm voice announced over the public address system. "All personnel remain in place. Security teams responding." Through the transparent doors, they could see figures moving rapidly down the corridor. One of them, a tall draconian delegate, stumbled into view, clutching his side. Behind him, a hooded figure raised what appeared to be a compact energy weapon. Without hesitation, Orion bolted toward the doors, which slid open automatically in response to the emergency protocols. Several delegates shouted in alarm, but Mara was already in motion, following her companion. "Orion, protect!" she commanded. The wolfhound reached the draconian delegate just as the assailant fired again. With incredible precision, Orion knocked the wounded delegate aside, avoiding the energy beam by millimeters. Then, in a blur of motion, he lunged at the attacker, not with bared teeth as many expected, but with a calculated body check that sent the weapon flying from their hand. The assailant stumbled backward, reaching for a secondary weapon, but Orion was faster. He positioned himself between the attacker and the fallen delegate, his posture protective rather than aggressive, his growl a clear warning. Station security arrived seconds later, surrounding the assailant with drawn weapons. As they secured the scene, Orion returned to the wounded draconian, gently nudging him with his muzzle, a behavior Mara recognized as his medical assessment mode. The entire incident had lasted less than a minute. As emergency medical personnel rushed forward, Mara called Orion back to her side, acutely aware of the stunned silence from the delegates who had witnessed the event. Security footage of the incident was reviewed in an emergency council session later that day. The holographic display showed multiple angles of Orion's intervention, his protective stance, the precise way he had disabled the attacker without causing injury, and his gentle muzzle touch to check the victim's condition. "The footage speaks for itself," Ambassador Huojin said as the playback ended. Captain Elix's companion acted to protect a council delegate from what appears to have been an assassination attempt. Commander Tal had been uncharacteristically quiet during the review. Now, his carapace shifting through complex patterns of blue and gold, he rose to address the council. "We acknowledge the Earth Beast's intervention," he said stiffly. "However, this does not change the fundamental security concern. What you have shown us today is a creature capable of both sophisticated espionage and combat intervention. The Scarlet Collective maintains its position. This biological weapon has no place in peace negotiations." A ripple of dissent moved through the council. The draconian representative, his wounds treated but still visible, spoke up. "With respect, Commander, I would be dead if not for the quick action of Earth's envoy. Perhaps we should reconsider our definition of weapon." Tal's compound eyes flashed. "A weapon that saved a life is still a weapon. I do not dispute the creature's usefulness in security operations, but that is precisely why it should not be present during diplomatic functions." The debate continued for hours, with factions forming along predictable lines. Those species with their own history of biological companions tended to support Earth's position, while those with more technological or hive mind orientations sided with Tal. In the end, a compromise was reached. Orion would be permitted to remain on Station Arbiter, but would be barred from plenary council sessions unless accompanied by an armed security escort, a concession that was both a victory and a subtle insult. As the delegates filed out, Tal approached Mara, his posture rigid. "Your beast is well trained," he admitted grudgingly, "but my position remains unchanged. It has no place in these chambers." With that, he turned and walked away, his entourage forming a protective circle around him. Ambassador Huojin joined Mara as she watched Tal depart. "He's afraid," the avian diplomat observed softly. "Not just of Orion, but of what he represents." "Which is?" Mara asked. Huojin's feathers rustled thoughtfully. "A different way of relating to other species. The Scarlet evolved from colony insects. Their understanding of interspecies relationships is hierarchical: predator, prey, or competitor. The idea of a predator species choosing to become a companion." She trailed off, her feathers rippling in what Mara had learned was an expression of deep thought. "It challenges everything they believe about the natural order." Mara looked down at Orion, who sat patiently at her side. "Then perhaps it's time for their beliefs to be challenged." The days that followed were tense. With the plenary sessions suspended pending Tal's return, smaller working groups continued to meet, but progress was slow. The assassination attempt had raised security concerns across the station, leading to increased restrictions and checkpoints. Mara used the time to her advantage, arranging informal meetings between Orion and curious delegates in the station's gardens, under the holographic cherry blossoms, which bloomed perpetually in the artificial environment. She explained Earth's long history with canine companions. "Our ancestors hunted alongside wolves before we built our first cities," she told a fascinated group of delegates. "Over thousands of years, we evolved together. They became more attuned to human emotions, and we learned to respect their intelligence and loyalty. Many were impressed by Orion's calm demeanor and obvious intelligence. Some even requested permission to touch his fur or offer treats, which he accepted with dignified grace. Not everyone was convinced. However, Tal's influence was considerable, and his blockade of the plenary sessions effectively halted the treaty ratification process. As days stretched into a week, pressure mounted on the Earth delegation to concede to his demands. "The Scarlet control key trade routes," Mara's superior officer reminded her during a secured transmission from Earth. "If they walk away from these talks, it could set interstellar relations back by decades." "I understand the stakes," Mara replied. "But there's more at issue here than just Orion's presence. If we cave to Tal's demands on this, what's next? Will he demand that all biological envoys be banned? Or that Earth representatives undergo genetic screening before attending council sessions?" The Admiral's expression was grave. "Your points are noted, Captain, but the Secretary General has authorized me to order Orion's return to Earth if necessary." "Give me one more day," Mara pleaded. "I think I can resolve this without compromising Earth's position." After a long pause, the Admiral nodded reluctantly. "One day, Captain. Make it count." Mara ended the transmission and turned to Orion. "Well, boy, it seems we're down to our last play. Let's make it a good one." She spent the next hours crafting a careful message to Commander Tal, requesting a private meeting in the station's garden. To her surprise, he agreed, though he insisted on bringing 2 aides. The garden was quiet when she arrived, the holographic cherry blossoms casting dappled patterns of light and shadow across the pathways. Orion padded silently beside her, his demeanor perfectly composed despite the high stakes of the encounter. Tal was waiting beneath a towering holographic oak, his carapace a guarded blue-green. His aides flanked him, their postures alert and wary. "Captain Alex," he acknowledged, his translator rendering his clicks into a clipped tone. "You requested this meeting. I assume you are finally ready to send your beast home." Mara kept her voice level. "Actually, Commander, I wanted to discuss your objections directly, without the formal constraints of the council chamber." Tal's compound eyes shifted hue slightly. "My objections have been clearly stated. That creature is a biological weapon and a spy." "Is that what you truly believe?" Mara asked, stepping closer. "Or is it that you don't understand the relationship between humans and canines?" "I understand predator and prey dynamics perfectly well," Tal retorted. "Your species has subjugated a hunting animal and weaponized it." Mara shook her head. "That's where you're wrong. We didn't subjugate wolves. They chose to ally with us. It was a mutual evolution of trust and cooperation." "An appealing myth." Tal's mandibles clicked dismissively. "Not a myth, Commander. Documented history. Our earliest ancestors shared food with wolves who helped them hunt, over generations. Those wolves that were more cooperative, more attuned to human emotions, thrived. They chose us as much as we chose them." Tal's carapace rippled with bands of skeptical orange. "You expect me to believe a predator voluntarily entered a partnership with potential prey? I expect you to consider that not all relationships in nature are based on dominance and submission." Mara replied. "Some are built on mutual benefit. And, yes, even emotional bonds." She took another step forward, closing the distance between them. Orion remained at her side, his posture relaxed but attentive. "Commander, how many lives did your people lose in the First Contact Wars?" The question seemed to catch Tal off guard. His carapace flashed a brief pattern of somber gray. 17,000. 342. "Earth lost over 2 million, Mara said quietly, "including my parents and older brother. I was raised in a war orphanage. The only constant companion I had during those years was a therapy dog named Stella." Tal's compound eyes fixed on her face, their color shifting to a more attentive amber. "When nightmares woke me, screaming, Stella was there," Mara continued. "When I couldn't speak for months after the bombing, she sat with me in silence. She wasn't a weapon or a tool. She was a friend when I had none." She gestured to Orion. His ancestor was a search and rescue dog who found survivors in the rubble of New Shanghai. He saved hundreds of lives, not by fighting, but by caring, by using his abilities to help others. Tal remained silent, but Mara could see his aides shifting uncomfortably, their antennae twitching in what might have been confusion or interest. "The treaty we're negotiating," Mara pressed on, "is supposed to establish a foundation for lasting peace. But peace isn't just the absence of war, Commander. It's the presence of understanding, of empathy, of trust. Tal's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sound his translator didn't render. When he spoke again, his tone had changed slightly. Your speech is persuasive, Captain, but it does not change the fact that your companion has capabilities that could compromise security. Every delegate in that chamber has capabilities that could compromise security, Mara countered. The Alturian representative can read electromagnetic fields. The Volari delegates have photographic memory. You yourself have compound eyes that can detect movements too subtle for most species to notice. She reached down to touch Orion's head. What makes him different? Is it simply that he has 4 legs instead of 2? Or is it that you don't understand the bond we share? Something in Tal's posture changed, a subtle shift that Mara couldn't quite interpret. He took a step toward them, his right forelimb moving in what might have been a gesture of conciliation or confrontation. Without warning, his hand darted to his side, where a compact plasma pistol was holstered beneath his ceremonial robes. Orion reacted instantly, positioning himself between Mara and Tal, his body tense but controlled, a low warning growl emanating from his throat. Tal froze, his compound eyes fixed on the wolfhound. For a heartbeat, the garden was silent except for the artificial rustle of holographic leaves. Then, slowly, deliberately, Mara placed her hand on Orion's back. "Stand down," she said softly. The growl ceased immediately, though Orion remained positioned protectively in front of her. Tal's mandibles twitched, his carapace cycling through rapid flashes of color, surprise, wariness, and something that might have been reluctant admiration. He could have attacked, Tal observed, his translator rendering his clicks into a thoughtful tone. Yet he merely positioned himself to protect you. That's what partnership means, Commander, Mara said quietly. Not dominance or exploitation, but mutual protection, mutual trust. She knelt beside Orion, meeting his amber eyes. He knows I would do the same for him. Tal was silent for a long moment, his compound eyes shifting through complex patterns of blue and gold. When he finally spoke, his tone had changed. In the first contact wars, he said slowly, the Scarab lost not just soldiers, but entire colony nests. 17,342 individuals, yes, but also the collective memory of generations. We do not form attachments, as your species does. Each loss diminishes the whole. It was the most personal statement Mara had ever heard from a Scarab representative. She remained silent, sensing that Tal was working towards something important. Your beast, your companion, he corrected himself, protected a delegate who was not of your species, not even of your alliance. Why? Because that's what he's trained to do, Mara answered simply. To protect, not just humans, but anyone in danger. Tal's carapace rippled with bands of thoughtful blue. A concept foreign to natural predators. Not so foreign, Mara countered. Even in nature, different species sometimes form unlikely alliances. Birds that warn herbivores of approaching predators. Cleaner fish that remove parasites from larger predatory fish without being eaten. Symbiosis, Tal acknowledged, a biological transaction. Sometimes more than that, Mara suggested. Sometimes it's the beginning of understanding. She gestured to the garden around them. This entire station is an exercise in creating an artificial environment where different species can coexist. Orion's presence is just another part of that experiment. Tal seemed to consider her words carefully. Then, abruptly, his carapace flashed a brilliant white, and he clutched at his thorax, staggering backward. His aides rushed forward as he collapsed to the garden floor, his limbs twitching spasmodically. "Medical emergency!" Mara called out, activating her comm unit. "Garden section, VIP area." As station medical personnel rushed to respond, Orion approached the fallen commander cautiously, his nose working rapidly. He turned to Mara with a specific pattern of ear movements she recognized from his medical response training. Biochemical imbalance, she translated for the medical team as they arrived. Possibly his regulatory implants. The chief medical officer, a Centaurian with specialized training in xenophysiology, scanned Tal quickly. "She's right. His homeostatic implants are malfunctioning. We need to stabilize him immediately." To everyone's surprise, Orion positioned himself beside Tal's prone form, his body pressing gently against the commander's thorax. The wolfhound's enhanced body temperature and bioelectric field created a stabilizing effect that the medical officer's instruments detected immediately. "Remarkable," the officer murmured. "The canine's presence is actually helping regulate his system. Keep him there while we prepare the emergency transport." As the medical team worked, Tal's compound eyes fixed on Orion, their color shifting to a confused amber. His mandibles clicked weakly, forming words his translator struggled to render. "Why, help? Enemy?" came the fragmented translation. Mara knelt beside him. "He doesn't see you as an enemy, Commander. Neither do I." Before Tal could respond, the medical team activated the emergency transport field, enveloping him in a shimmering cocoon of energy. As they prepared to move him to the medical bay, one of his aides approached Mara. "The commander's implants were overloaded," the aide explained, its own translator rendering its clicks into a concerned tone. "Too much conflicting data, emotional data. Your arguments caused a cascade failure in his logical processing centers." Mara's eyes widened. "I didn't intend." The aide raised a forelimb in what she recognized as a gesture of negation. "Not accusation. Observation. The commander has never considered such relationships before. It will take time to integrate this new understanding," as Tal was transported away. Mara stood in the quiet garden, Orion at her side. She had come seeking a diplomatic breakthrough, but not like this. Still. As news of the incident spread through the station, she began to notice a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Delegates who had previously avoided her now nodded in greeting. Some even approached to inquire about Tal's condition and, more tellingly, about Orion's role in stabilizing him. Ambassador Huojin found her in the station's observation deck later that day, watching the binary stars set behind the curve of a contested world. "An interesting development," the avian diplomat remarked, her feathers catching the red-gold light. "The Council has called an emergency vote on the status of biological envoys." Mara turned, surprised. Without Tal's input, Huojin's feathers rippled in what might have been amusement. Actually, Commander Tal transmitted his position from the medical bay, quite forcefully, I might add. "And?" Mara held her breath. "The Council has voted to grant all Earth biological envoys, dogs, wolfhounds, dolphin kin, official peacekeeper status, with all the privileges and protections that entails." Mara's heart leapt. "Including attendance at plenary sessions?" "With one condition," Huojin added. "They must be accompanied by an armed escort." Mara's face fell slightly. So Tal got his way after all. "Not quite." Huojin's feathers rippled again. "The escort is for their protection, not to protect others from them. It's a subtle distinction, but an important one. Your companion will be recognized as a valuable asset, not a potential threat." It was a diplomatic victory, if not a complete one. Mara looked down at Orion, who had been listening to the conversation with typical canine attention. "Hear that, boy? You're officially a peacekeeper now." His tail swished once in acknowledgement, as if he had understood every word. 3 days later, Commander Tal returned to the council chamber. His carapace gleamed with its usual metallic blue sheen, though those with keen observation noted subtle changes in the patterns across its surface. Most striking, however, was his entourage. In addition to his usual aides, he was now accompanied by a member of the station's security force, armed with a standard-issue pulse rifle. As the delegates settled into their positions, Tal approached Mara and Orion, who were similarly accompanied by an armed escort. The chamber fell silent, many expecting another confrontation. Instead, Tal inclined his upper body in what his species considered a formal gesture of acknowledgement. "Captain Alex," he began, his translator rendering his clicks into a measured tone. "I have reviewed the incident in the garden and consulted with my colony nest's elders. While I maintain that security protocols must be rigorously enforced, I acknowledge that my assessment of your companion was incomplete." It wasn't exactly an apology, but from a Scarlet commander, it was an extraordinary concession. Mara inclined her head in return. "Thank you, Commander. I appreciate your reconsideration." Tal's compound eyes shifted to Orion, who sat perfectly still under the insectoid's scrutiny. "The Council has recognized your companion's status," he continued. "I will abide by their decision, though I have insisted on certain precautions." He gestured to the armed escorts. "Understood," Mara replied diplomatically. Tal's mandibles clicked in what might have been hesitation. "Your explanation of Earth's historical relationship with canines was informative. The Scarlet have no comparable experience with interspecies cooperation outside of strictly defined hierarchical structures. Perhaps that could change," Mara suggested carefully. Tal's carapace flashed a brief pattern of contemplative blue. "Perhaps. In time." With that, he returned to his delegation's position, his armed escort taking up a discreet position nearby. Ambassador Huojin called the session to order, and the long-delayed treaty negotiations resumed. Progress was slow but steady, with compromises being reached on key points that had previously seemed intractable. Orion's presence, now officially sanctioned, became less of a distraction as the days passed. 1 week later, the preliminary treaty was signed. It wasn't the comprehensive peace agreement Earth had hoped for, but it established a framework for further negotiations and included crucial provisions for humanitarian access to contested worlds. As delegates prepared to depart Station Arbiter, Mara received a surprise communication from Commander Tal requesting a final private meeting, this time in the station's docking bay, where the Scarlet delegation's ship waited. When she arrived with Orion and their mandatory escort, she found Tal standing beside his vessel, his own escort at a respectful distance. In his forelimbs, he held a small object wrapped in shimmering Scarlet ceremonial fabric. "Captain Alex," he greeted her, his carapace shifting through formal patterns of blue and gold. "Before I depart, there is a matter I wish to address." Mara nodded, curious. "Of course, Commander." Tal extended the wrapped object. "In our culture, when a significant misunderstanding has been corrected, it is customary to offer a token of new understanding." Surprised, Mara accepted the gift, unwrapping it carefully. She revealed an intricate medallion made of a luminescent material that caught the light in mesmerizing patterns. At its center was an engraved symbol she recognized from xenolinguistics courses, the Scarlet glyph, for ally. It is traditionally worn by those who have corrected a colony nest's misconception, Tal explained. It seemed appropriate. "Thank you, Commander," Mara said, genuinely touched by the gesture. "I'm honored." Tal's compound eyes shifted to Orion. "The medallion has a companion piece." From another fold in his robes, he produced a smaller version of the same symbol, attached to a slender chain. For Orion. If that is acceptable." It was an unprecedented gesture from a Scarab official. Mara nodded, too moved for words, and watched as Tal cautiously approached Orion. The wolfhound remained perfectly still as the commander carefully attached the medallion to his collar, next to the bone-shaped tag. "There," Tal said, stepping back. "Now the council records will show that both Earth representatives were recognized for their contribution to understanding." His mandibles clicked in what his translator didn't bother to render, a sound Mara had learned was often associated with personal, rather than official, communication. "You asked why I was afraid," Tal said quietly. "It was not fear of your companion's capabilities. It was fear of what he represents, a kind of relationship my species has never experienced. The idea that a predator could choose to protect rather than consume, to serve rather than dominate. It challenges everything we have built our society upon." He turned to gaze out the viewport at the stars beyond. "The Scarab have survived by rigid hierarchy and clear categorization of all living things. Your companion defies our categories. He is neither weapon nor tool, neither servant nor master. He is something we have no word for." "Friend," Mara supplied simply. Tal's carapace rippled with thoughtful blue patterns. "Perhaps, in time, we will develop such a concept." He turned back to her. "Until then, I will remember what I have learned here." With a formal gesture of farewell, he boarded his ship, his armed escort following close behind. As the vessel detached from the station and glided away into space, Mara knelt beside Orion, examining the new medallion on his collar. "Well, boy," she said softly, "it seems we've made quite an impression." 2 days later, Mara's own ship was prepared for departure. She had been recalled to Earth to deliver a personal report on the negotiations and the new status of biological envoys. As she completed the pre-flight checks, Ambassador Huojin paid a final visit to the docking bay. "A successful mission, by any measure," the avian diplomat observed, her feathers catching the light in iridescent patterns. "You've changed perceptions across the council." "Not just me," Mara replied, glancing at Orion, who was already settled in his designated area in the ship's cabin. "It seems being just a dog can make quite a difference." Huojin's feathers rippled in amusement. "Indeed. Though I suspect Commander Tal will never use that phrase again." As they said their farewells, Huojin presented Mara with a data crystal, a copy of the Council's official recognition of Earth's bioenvoy program, and something else you might find interesting, a transcript of Commander Tal's final comments to his delegation. Curious, Mara accepted the crystal. "Thank you, Ambassador, for everything." After Huojin departed, Mara settled into the pilot's seat and initiated the launch sequence. Once they were safely in hyperspace, she inserted the data crystal into the ship's reader. The official documents appeared first, formal recognition of Orion and others, like him as legitimate diplomatic representatives, with all associated rights and protections. But it was the second file that caught her attention, a holographic recording of Commander Tal addressing his delegation before their departure. The translation overlay rendered his clicks and whistles into the common language. "Our understanding of the humans and their companions was fundamentally flawed," Tal was saying, his carapace shifting through patterns of formal blue and reflective gold. "We categorized their bioforms as weapons or tools because that is how we would use such creatures. But they have shown us a different path, one our ancestors never considered. His compound eyes shifted hue as he continued. The human captain and her companion demonstrated something our scientists have long theorized, but our society has never embraced: that cooperation between different species can create relationships that transcend biological imperatives. That a predator can choose to protect. That loyalty can exist without hierarchy. There was a pause as Tal's mandibles clicked in what might have been thoughtful consideration. Then, the words that made Mara smile. It is not, as I incorrectly stated, just a dog. It is a glimpse of what might be possible if we expand our understanding of interspecies relations. And perhaps, in time, the Scarret may learn from this example. The recording ended, leaving the cabin in silence except for the soft hum of the hyperspace engines. Mara looked over at Orion, who had raised his head at the sound of Tal's translated voice. "Well, boy," she said softly, reaching over to stroke his head. "It seems you've made quite an impression on our insectoid friend." Orion's amber eyes met hers with that same intelligent gaze that had first convinced her to request him as her diplomatic partner. He shifted, curling comfortably at her feet as the ship hurtled through hyperspace, carrying them back to Earth with a revised interspecies charter and a new understanding of what it meant to be more than just a dog. In the quiet of the cabin, Tal's words echoed in Mara's mind, a lesson in humility from an unexpected source, and perhaps the beginning of a deeper peace than any treaty could establish.